was going to say, like, your current shop, I think I could cram, well, that makes sense. I have a 1-car garage and you have a 4. I was going to say, I can get 4 of my shop in there.
That's exactly
Good math,
4.
Bill. Nice job.
Math is hard.
Welcome to Maker's Hustle, the podcast about turning your passion into a profession. This is episode 27 for Monday, January 16th, 2016. I think that's right. I'm your host, Bill Lavolsi, and here are my co-hosts, Amy Davis-Roth. Hey, Amy.
Hey.
And Jeffrey Moore. Hi, Jeff.
Hey, what's going on, everybody?
And last but not least, let's all welcome our special guest for the week, Marc Spagnuolo. Hi, Marc.
Hey, how's it going?
Round of applause.
Yeah!
Yay
So
for me!
Do you have like the applause sound?
I'll drop something in.
NPR.
That'll be kind of cool.
It's great to be here, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for coming on the show. So, speaking of thank yous, before we get rolling, thanks to everybody on Patreon. Welcome to our newest supporter, Richard Engstrom, and an extra special thank you to our top supporters, Luis Gonzalez and Ryan Ahoro. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you for being a part of the family. We really appreciate it.
Yeah.
We do.
At least I do. I can't speak for them, but
Oh, we appreciate it a lot.
I'm going to go on a limb.
Yeah. So if you would like to support the show, you can check us out at patreon.com/makershustle, and we'll probably do another giveaway, I don't know, next week. We do them all the time. So
Sounds good.
So yeah, what's everybody working on this week? And the guest of honor has the option of going first. So Marc, what have you been working on this week?
I've actually been working on kind of boring stuff because I no projects right now. I'm just trying to get my shop back in order, and I don't know, it's probably a different audience than normally I talk to. So I've actually moved about a month and a half ago and had to move a 1,800 square foot shop down into a 950 square foot shop. So it's still pretty big, but I've got to compress a little bit, and I've got to install lights, electricity, heat, all that stuff. So I'm at the point now where we're just focused on getting tools in the right places and then getting some power run to those tools so I could start building again.
Nice.
Yeah, I did spend a couple of weeks using some of DeWalt's FlexVolt series, so it's all battery-powered tools. And I built like an old-school arcade cabinet using a Raspberry Pi setup with RetroPie, and it was awesome. It was a great build, but it was all those portable hand tools that I don't usually use.
Right.
So I'm really looking forward to getting my big tools up and running again, so I can do larger-scale projects.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Is it weird having to actually heat your shop?
Oh, it's totally weird. I went from Southern California to Arizona, so heat in my shop has just never really, as long as I've been a woodworker, just hasn't really been much of a factor. And now it's kind of like the primary thing to worry about.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I must be the saddest person in the world because I literally have the heat on in my art studio right now.
Well,
and I'm in Los Angeles.
Yeah, sometimes it gets a little bit chilly, but usually a hooded sweatshirt is enough. Just my hoodie would take care of it.
Yeah.
But
Did you guys get snow last week?
We did get some snow. Yeah, we got a little bit. And then the great thing about Denver is like 2 days later, it's up to 50 or 60 degrees. So the last 3 days have been in the 50s and 60s. Snow's gone, and you can go out for a jog, and it's just beautiful weather.
Cool.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
Beautiful
can't beat that.
weather here too. Yeah, I'm not a fan of any type of changes. I need spring or fall. That's it. When it hits the winter time, I can't even function the normal way.
Which is why you live in New York.
Yeah, makes no sense at all.
So Jeff, what about you? What have you been doing?
So this week was a pretty slow week. This week it wasn't really that slow, but it was slow in the sense of making stuff. I took my legs off my dragon robot and found a new way to put them on, which was a little bit more effective. That took about a day. And then after that, I did a little bit of, if you want to call it manual making for my program. So I created all the policies for the kids. I'm putting together a little student handbook and a intern, or I call them teacher fellow handbook. So I made some handbooks, took some legs off robots, put them back on robots, and that was about the epitome of my week. So it was pretty slow.
Huh.
Nothing special.
Sorry, whenever you say you're taking the legs off robots, I see like some little kid pulling the legs off a bug or something. I have to remind myself that you made the robot, so.
About halfway through, you want to do that because you realize how many little screws go into it, and then you're like, I can't do it because it'll take too long to make another one.
And then you always lose one, right?
Oh, losing there. So it's funny because, as you guys know, I build stuff in my living room on my little dining room table, And it's on the couch. So I sit on the couch and I work on my little dining room table. But underneath, I don't think it's called the shag rug, but it's, the ones with the...
There's some pile to it, yeah.
Thicker pile.
Yeah, I don't know what those things are called, but my rug is crazy. So if I was to lift up my rug and shake it out onto the ground, I'm pretty sure a lot of screws and stuff will start falling out.
Have a little hardware store in there.
Yeah, it's enough. It's enough to build a couple of robots. Let's put it like that.
You just walk by with a magnet and go, ooh, now I don't have to go shopping.
Yeah. And the vacuum, I got the terrible little dirt devil, but not the big one. The one that's as long as my arm. It's as thick as my arm, so it doesn't really get all the good stuff out. So probably when I move out, I'm going to shake my rug and then sweep up all the screws and put them and save them and use them for something else.
Nice.
Get some strong magnets, some rare earth magnets, and suck all that stuff up.
To do that too.
That'd be fun.
Amy, what are you doing?
I built a moat, you guys, by accident.
Like full size? Real?
Yeah, all the way around my house and art studio, because apparently the drought decided to end in 5 days in Los Angeles, and my whole backyard is flooded. It's amazing. It's amazing. I'm going to invite neighborhood kids over to swim in it. It's pretty cool. But other than that, I've been doing a lot of drawings for my Patreon. I just did a dragon. You just talked about a dragon.
Oh.
I just did a dragon drawing, and it has a quote from Obama's mama on it, which is I just like to say that, Obama's mama. So in Obama's farewell speech, he quoted his mama, and she said, "Reality has a way of catching up with you." And I loved that. So I did a drawing based on it. Yeah. Posted that on my Patreon. I'm going to make stickers out of it for my sticker giveaway next month. And then I also did a drawing about Russell's teapot, which is a philosophical concept about how if there was a tiny teapot floating out in space that was so small that not the most powerful telescopes could detect it, that you cannot prove whether it's there or not, but it does not make it any more of a credible argument. So it's a sort of this, thought project that you can do in your head when someone comes at you with an idea that sounds really far-fetched, but you can't disprove it. So it sort of helps you, bust through all the fake news stories that we're getting, and people are telling us are fake news when it's really real news, and all that confusing things that are happening in the media. So Russell's teapot can sort of help you think about that just because somebody says something, it doesn't make it any more credible. And just because you cannot immediately disprove it doesn't make it any more or less credible either.
Yeah, it's kind of I'm actually familiar with that one. It's kind of an exercise in how you can't prove a negative. You can't prove that something doesn't exist. You can, eliminate all the other possibilities. You can prove that something does exist, but you can't prove that it doesn't.
Right. So I drew a really cool teapot floating in space. And I'm also going to make a sticker out of that, too, I think, because I really love it. Other than that, I'm doing a bunch of custom orders for people. So I've been making a lot of new molds, and I'm doing a whole bunch of resist necklaces and a bunch of other really fun stuff I'm working on. I'm still working on the hair clips that I talked about last week. So I got a lot going on over here at Surly Art Studio.
As always.
I don't know how you get all that done in 1 week. I feel like and maybe it's because we talk every day that I think, if she's always texting and always on Twitter, when does she have time?
Well, no, because when I'm on Twitter is when I'm packing orders or I'm posting on my blogs, because I also manage this art blog called Mad Art Lab, right? So I'm communicating with 50 people every day. And so I do that, and then
I thought we were special.
So I have a lot of time to tweet. I know I seem like an obsessive tweeter, especially lately, because I'm trying to get out a lot of information to the public before they take Twitter away from me or come cart me off. Some Russian cartel comes and gets me. But so I keep trying to push out as much information as I can right now. So I am a little bit annoying on Twitter right now. But on all the other social media, I'm still normal. So follow me on Instagram if you don't want to hear my political rants.
Of course, if you don't want to hear Amy's political rants, chances are you're not listening to this show either.
This podcast anyway. I know at this
That's
point.
Okay. Well, Jeff, you were asking, you didn't know when Amy has time to get all this stuff done. I found out this week because I decided to get off Facebook. Again.
I hate Facebook.
I know. Well, the thing is, it's really, really useful for certain things, but it will also just consume your entire day. So I'm not really off Facebook. I just deleted the app off of my phone. That's all I did. I even still have the Messenger app, but just not having my phone beep at me every few minutes saying, "Hey, you haven't looked at Facebook in the last 5 minutes." I get so much more stuff done just not having it there. It's great.
Can you just turn off the notifications?
Yeah.
It's even better if, that way if you have a moment, you don't go, I wonder if anything happened on Facebook. It doesn't matter. It's not on my phone. I'm not going to go download it just so I can, kill a minute. It's gone.
So what you're saying is you're not strong enough to be able to, push that temptation to the side. Okay.
I am a weak man.
Well, it's all about habits.
Yeah.
Here's a system for you, Bill. The way I do it is the only time I ever go to my phone and scroll through that Facebook timeline, and the only time I allow myself to do it is when I'm sitting on the toilet. And that might be TMI.
Perfect.
But not on this show.
That's great.
Most of the time, that's the kind of stuff I'm reading in my Facebook timeline anyway. It deserves to be read in that environment. So I may as well limit myself to that for that period. Now, if I'm going to post and I'm actually, putting information out myself, that's part of the work. That's part of the business. So I let myself do that when it's appropriate. But if you just reserve it for toilet time, it's amazing. It just you get to do it, but it's in an allotted time frame.
I'm thinking of every long response I've ever received from you. And okay, so let's see. What else did I do this week now that I'm not on Facebook? Well, first of all, I had been doing videos on Wednesday. I moved them to Friday just because, I don't know, it felt better. So I moved video production day to Friday, and last week I did a video. I carved a new handle for a hatchet head that I found at a flea market and sharpened up the hatchet and then went out and found like the only downed tree in Las Vegas and chopped at it to show that it worked. And then this week I made a, if you're familiar with those fidget spinner toys, I made one out of brass and like some copper plumbing pipe. And did a little video about that, and I tried to put it together like 3 or 4 different ways, and most of them didn't work, and it was fun. But it's that'll be out before this podcast comes out. If you're not familiar with a fidget spinner, they kind of look like this.
Nice.
This is an advantage of watching the video version of this podcast over on the Makers Hustle YouTube channel. So, anyway.
That would have been nice to have in my meeting today.
I love it.
It keeps me from doing really annoying stuff like tapping my foot or, shaking my leg or the things that the people next to me can feel. Or that make my wife go, stop it. So
yeah, I have the shaking the leg habit. Did you guys get my
joke when I texted you? I texted you earlier this week. I'm like, if it stops spinning, I'll know I'm awake because of Inception.
Yeah.
It's like a little spinner, and he puts it, for those of you not watching, he puts it on his hand, and it spins, and it's mesmerizing. It's sort of like a top that balances on his thumb. And if you saw the movie Inception... Yeah. You know what I'm talking about.
You know what's really fun is just holding it and aiming the air compressor at it and just making it spin really fast.
Oh.
But, yeah. All right, so, we've got Marc Spagnuolo with us today, and what we're going to talk about is, if you're not familiar with Marc, you know what? Marc, you're here. Why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are for the people who may not know?
Sure. I'm Marc Spagnuolo, and I'm a woodworker, and I teach people how to do woodworking on the internet. And I've been doing it since... 2006. So I've been around for a while, over 10 years at this point. And it's just, I love to do it. I love to build furniture and show people how I do the things that I do. And the great thing about, doing anything online is you get to learn as you're doing it. So I think I learn as much from my audience as they learn from me, which is great. The journey over the last 10 years has been pretty awesome. So everything we do is over at the woodwhisperer.com. And we've got other websites and things that we're involved in, but that's kind of the primary hub for everything that we do.
Cool.
I have to say, before we go any further, your voice is incredible.
What?
The voice is incredible. I was watching a couple of the videos, and I'm like, goodness, this guy sounds great.
My voice annoys the hell out of me.
Really? Oh, man,
everybody's voice does.
I listen to my own voice, and I'm like, oh, that's not good. This is not good for business.
I'm like, his voice needs to be on every commercial.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a second.
You know how you have the State Farm guy, and there needs to be Marc.
Then Marc.
Yeah, I'm not so sure.
Those are the only 2 commercials I want to hear from.
There you go. Okay, well, I'll give that some consideration.
Yeah, that might be an extra funding stream there.
Yeah, sponsorship opportunity. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
So Marc, I have a question for Marc.
Go ahead.
My understanding is that you were one of the first people to start doing YouTube videos about woodworking. Is that true?
Yes.
And if it's true, could you explain what sort of inspired you to get into that if nobody else was doing it?
Yeah, at that time, it was really just after YouTube kind of started, so it's not like the environment that we see today it's so obvious. You get into something, you want to produce content, you make YouTube videos. It's just what you do. At the time, it wasn't quite as clear cut. There was no high def video being uploaded, so it just wasn't as obvious. So the only people who were really doing podcasts and doing video podcasts at that was like the bleeding edge, were tech podcasts. So I happened to be, sort of into tech just in general. I enjoy learning about anything related to computers. So I would follow a lot of these, sort of in my spare time while I was working in the shop. And as the video stuff started to really take hold, I got a hold of a video iPod and I downloaded some of these podcasts and I'm like, this is fantastic and this is a great medium. Why is no one doing this with woodworking? And that's kind of what inspired me to start. Was I just saw a gap, and no one had really tried this yet. PBS woodworking shows were really starting to go away. The New Yankee Workshop went away. HGTV and DIY channel, those weren't doing serious crafting. They were just more focusing on real estate stuff and how to flip houses. So it was like, all right, no one is doing this. Maybe we should try something. Let's see if it works. So there's just a lot of technical hurdles at the time. I mean, now, geez, you can grab your phone and 2 seconds later, you've got a YouTube channel and a quote unquote show. Back then, you had to learn about building your website. You had to learn about RSS feeds and where to host your video. It was just kind of a crazy time, and the barrier to entry was huge at the time. But I was able to learn it and figure it out, and that's kind of what inspired me to jump into it, because it was no one else was doing it, and I thought it was a great medium.
So were you making any money at the time doing it that way, or did you have another job?
Initially, no, and this was done when I had I basically, one of the reasons, by the way, why I love what you do is my original career was in biotech, and I basically was working in a genetics lab, and then moved over to technical service. Hated the job, and basically was doing woodworking as a hobby. Eventually, got totally sick of it. We didn't have kids at the time, so my wife said, "Go for it. You should start a furniture business." So that's what I was doing when I started the Wood Whisperer in 2006. Was trying to make this furniture business work, and I was very bad at it. I did the best I could, but it wasn't really. I mean, I had to get odd jobs here and there. I took on a lot of finishing that I didn't enjoy doing, and finally decided all right, well, this online video thing is a possibility. Let's see what happens. It can't hurt. And next thing you know, within 6 months, we had sponsors for that. So suddenly, this thing that was just kind of, we just kind of did as a lark, just for fun, turned into something that made me more money immediately than everything I was doing prior to that.
Did your biotech experience, did it feed into any of your creative ideas moving forward? I'm always sort of fascinated by people that are involved in technology and science that then move into a creative field. So have you sort of brought any of that with you at all, or did you just walk away from it completely?
I did, for the most part, walk away from it. A lot of what I studied was plant biology, so there is a little bit.
I love that.
Some of it was maybe transferable to understanding how trees work, but ultimately, when you're in the shop, it's really about how the blade meets the wood.
You're not worried about how it grows. You're worried about killing it.
Yeah. Have you guys read that book? I'm halfway through that book, The Hidden Life of Trees. Have you guys read this book? You should read this book. It's really incredible, and it makes me sad for all the trees that get cut down for the lumber industry. But it's a really fascinating book that sort of picks out all of the science and that they've gathered so far about how trees communicate through their root systems and how they communicate using insects and all of these really fascinating things about how trees silently communicate and how they do it at just a much slower rate than we're used to, because their lifespans are anywhere from 30 to 1,000 years old. So it's really interesting. If you want to find out where your wood is coming from, it's a really great book to check out. So
that should be a prerequisite of everybody who goes into woodworking.
Well, I don't know. It was freaking me out. I was like, I don't even want to eat at the table anymore. This is horrifying. I'm like, I can't eat anything now.
The counterpoint to that is the T-shirt that says, "If you see me hugging a tree, I'm estimating board feet."
Yeah, right.
What?
I missed that joke.
Lumber joke. Sorry.
That's a lumber joke. I was about to say that's a woodwork.
Yeah.
Anyway,
let me ask you a question. Because you said in the beginning when you were talking about what you were doing, you made an arcade, the old school arcade table, and you used the Raspberry Pi. Mm-hmm. Did you use the Raspberry Pi and make an actual game out of it, or did you just use it for, just to basically hook it up and get the lights going?
You use the Raspberry Pi to load it up with game ROMs, like old school retro games.
Okay.
Yeah, so you're basically just using it like a mini computer, and a lot of this is, people have done way more than I did with this, so it's very easy to go online and get like pre-programmed things, put the SD card in there, fire it up, and now you've got this awesome retro gaming system.
Oh, that's
so there wasn't not a whole lot of programming involved in it.
Oh, that's dope though. Still.
Yeah, it's
great way to make the transition between technology and also woodworking. That's
sure.
a great way. I think that there's a lot of opportunities in that. Mind you, I'm not a woodworker at all. I like tools and I like the smell of burning wood, but I'm not a woodworker. But I forgot who it was. I think it was Laura.
Yeah.
And you just saw Laura doing that crossover with Simone, and just stuff like that. There's a lot of opportunities for people in the technologies and hobby technologies and hobby woodworking to do crossover, do some branding and do some marketing like that. That's a dope opportunity.
Yeah, it's something I don't do enough of, and I think it's to my disadvantage because I really do like to focus on classic furniture building and, and also modern furniture, but I just want to build stuff out of wood, and I don't really use much in other materials, and the fact that I'm a gamer and I enjoy technology, I'm not often inclined to bring it into my woodworking, which is, again, probably to my disadvantage because I totally agree. It's a great thing to do. People love to see it, and it's time for stuff like that.
It's kind of, that's kind of part of the appeal of the whole like maker movement, is just you're not confined to any one medium or material. You work with whatever's in front of you or whatever strikes your fancy. So I haven't worked with brass before. I did something with brass this week because I felt like it. And it turns out it's, well, first of all, it's a lot easier than steel because I don't have to spend so long filing it down. And second, it's like anything else. There's a learning curve. You figure it out, and now I can just file that away. And the next time I've got to work with it, I've got that in there.
Right.
That reminds me. Where's our chair at?
Oh, yeah, the chair. Working on it. I actually.
That's right. I'm like, what is he talking about?
I couldn't remember what the name of the chair.
For anybody who didn't hear,
the
metal Adirondack chair. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah. I couldn't remember. I just remember I needed a chair. You owe us a chair, Bill. Don't forget.
Yeah,
I'm not
no, I
do.
I do owe us a chair. I
still
actually
got 2 weeks, right?
Yeah, I still got 2 weeks.
Oh,
That's plenty of time.
Time goes by super fast. It's already like the 14th. I feel like we just did the New Year's episode.
Well, yeah, okay. No, it's I spent the last 2 days actually cleaning the garage because it had just gotten really bad. I had a client job that I built it and then they canceled.
Ooh.
So, yeah, but luckily I got paid in full up front for this one. So when they canceled, I said, "All right, I will refund you what I didn't spend on, time and materials, but you guys are canceling when I'm about to deliver, And they said, "No, we understand. It's just we can't use it and we have nowhere to store it and we're really sorry to do this to you." And I just, "All right, well, that's fine." So I broke everything back down. So I managed to reclaim some of the material and I still got paid, which is a miracle. But in the meantime, my shop had just become this total disaster. So getting it back feels really good. But now that I've got a clear space that's not covered in sawdust or another project, I can actually weld some stuff together without setting the house on fire. So that'll be good.
Nice.
Oh,
so, Mark,
congratulations.
You mentioned that you're really into classical woodworking. I'm wondering, do you have a favorite genre, like mid-century modern, or is there any specific kind of furniture that you love?
Yeah, I kind of jump around and we'll spend time for a few months in something and then move to something else. But one thing that I always return to is a furniture style called green and green. And actually, you're in a good area for green and green. It's a lot of the green and green ultimate bungalows are in Pasadena. Ooh. And there's one in Northern California as well, the Thorson House. But these are just amazing structures that are, if you kind of take arts and crafts mission style and blend that with a little bit of Asian influence, that's what green and green tends to look like. And it's a little bit divisive. Some people love it, some people hate it, but it's absolutely one of my favorite. It's a high technical degree of difficulty to do their projects. And that's one that I like to focus on. But as a content producer, you can only do so much of that because it is divisive. You'll lose people, if you talk about it too much, because it's I could appreciate that, but I would never build it. Well, you can't do too many of those projects, so I have to restrain myself.
Can you explain what that really, describe a piece of green on green? Because I'm not really.
I'm Googling it right now. I'm very interested.
Before I Google it.
It's Green and Green. It's two brothers,
Okay.
Charles and Henry Green. So they just refer to themselves as Green and Green.
Gotcha.
Picture dark red wood. It's basically going to be mahogany or something dyed in that dark red family. You tend to have a lot of exposed joinery. So you might see, sort of a architectural detail where there's finger joints at the end, and they're proud of one another, and they're pillowed. So it just looks like meaty. You just want to touch it and get your hands in there on it. And everything is accented with ebony plugs. It's one of the other hallmarks of the style, is you'll see these ebony plugs and ebony splines. So it's very, I find it to be a very masculine furniture style. When you look at it, it just has very little feminine quality to it. Which is kind of a weird thing with furniture, but I do see in some styles masculine and femininity in certain things. So, but yeah, Google it. It's definitely something you want to take a look at. And it's when you see it, you know it, and you can't forget it.
I have to say, in your bio on your website, you talked about how you were a natural educator, how you like to just explain things. And as you were explaining things, I was Googling it, and the way that you explained it is exactly how it looks.
It's almost like he's got 10 years of practice at this.
Yeah,
or
it's
something.
almost like he knows.
I've done this before.
Like maybe he's built it.
Well, this goes back
This
to
is
what Amy
very-
was saying about what did I bring with me from the world of science. And
Yeah.
although I don't think it added much to my creative inspirations, it certainly taught me how to be a analytical thinker and someone who can train other people in a method, in a way that just makes sense. Explain things in a way that makes sense. And that's something that by writing scientific papers, you really learn how to do very systematically. And I think that's something that I bring into my educational style.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is right on point. So let me ask you a question, and this is something that I think I want to start asking all of our guests. What is your creative process? Do you use any type of software, CAD software, to draw up the designs of whatever it is that you're going to build, or do you do regular paper? Do you do like build and write on your workbench?
Don't write on my workbench, but it's kind of a combination of things. A lot of times the first thing I'm going to do is usually an image search. If I'm trying to get ideas, trying to get inspiration, I just want to see what's been done, what's out there. I never really think of myself as, I don't know, a lot of artists and creative folks, maybe whether they think of themselves as original or they just strive to be original, that's something I don't really worry too much about. I will fully admit that I am a product of all the things that I've seen and experiences I've had in my life. And everything I do is probably regurgitating a mishmash of those things. And I don't even want to try to say, this is Mark's original idea. To me, that's BS. I can't do that. So everything I do starts with look at what's already been done and see if I can't riff on that and turn it into something that I do feel like it's got enough of my spin on it that I can call it my own. So from that point, I do have trouble taking a creative concept and bringing it directly into a digital space. So I do start with a piece of paper, pencil. I might draft something out, get some ideas of the lines, the curvatures, and then once I'm kind of happy with where I'm going, then I'll go to SketchUp is the program that I use.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I'll use SketchUp to draft proportions. I want to know whether the rails and stiles are the right size for the overall size of the cabinet, whether the legs are the right size, and then I use the SketchUp as well to work out joinery details, and I'll completely map out one joint because they're all going to probably be the same.
The same, yeah.
And that lets me know that my thicknesses and my depths are correct. So I won't draft it completely in that digital space because I don't know the program well enough to do it, but I will take it far enough that I have all the information I need to then go in the shop and actually build this thing.
Cool.
That is very interesting.
I have a question based on something that Amy said, which is you were talking about how green and green is kind of a divisive style, and some people love it and some people hate it. And since you were kind of one of the, if not the first people to make online woodworking content, how much of a consideration was the divisiveness of that style when you were deciding what's the next thing you're going to do or what's the next thing you're going to build? Like, how were you, because you were trying to build an audience from scratch. It's not like there was already people going on YouTube looking for woodworking stuff, because as far as I know, when you started, there was no YouTube.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if there was, no one was paying much attention. When did YouTube start? Like 2000? I think they started in 2006, if I'm not mistaken. You always have to think about that, just even in general terms. Is the audience going to care? But I also have I only have a certain amount of going out of what I want to do, because ultimately the reason I do this and the reason I work for myself and not for someone else is because I want to do what I want to do. So I will try as much as, within reason, to build something that I think people will care about. But I am not, and never will be the kind of person who's going to go, well, let me see what what's really ranking high in Google keywords this week. Okay, Star Wars is a conversation because, someone just passed away. Well, let me build, a Princess Leia wooden thing for my ears. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have enough. I can't move that quickly to be, time sensitive like that to capture that type of thing. And honestly, if I'm not interested in it, it'll show in the video, so I have to want to build that thing. So I try to be smart about it because that's, obviously it's good for business to build everything people want to see. But if I'm not interested in it, it's hard for me to find a motivation to get off my butt and actually make that thing.
Wow, that's interesting. You really
I'm sorry. Can I interrupt? Can we have a moment of silence for Carrie Fisher, please? Because
Yes.
that's who you meant to say.
Yes, absolutely.
No, but seriously, go ahead, Jeff. I just wanted to shout out to Carrie Fisher because I loved her.
Hang on, give me a second. Now I remember. Well, I vaguely remember, but I remember what my train of thought was. And I got this sense from your bio that you tried to go off and do that when you first left the biotech job. You tried it out. You weren't as successful the first time. You did a couple of odd jobs, and then you went back to the regular job for a while until you were able to get everything situated, and then you went back and you tried to redouble your efforts. And from your bio, you really get the sense that this is something that you love to do. And I'm confident in, if I was to say that this is the thing that makes you happy more than anything else.
Oh yeah. Well, aside from my family.
Your family and stuff like that. But
yeah,
it wouldn't have mattered what job you were doing. It wouldn't have brought you the same type of satisfaction as this. And I think that's something that we talk about a lot because even for myself, I still have a regular job, but I also do things on the side. And for me, I don't have the same level of satisfaction. I received the same level of satisfaction from making my robots as I do making this podcast, but all of that trumps all of that.
We're gonna need to have to beep that out like it was a swear word, okay?
I like that. I'll do it.
I said.
But it kind of sucks that we can't use that word anymore.
I know, right? And it's funny that I caught myself thinking about that, but all of that just supersedes the satisfaction I get. Though I am extremely satisfied at the job, all of that is a different type of satisfaction, and it's only like you can't see yourself doing anything else.
Yeah,
you can't see yourself. It becomes synonymous with breathing, right? It becomes synonymous with life. Like when you do your woodworking, you feel the most alive. At least when I'm building robots, I feel the most alive. Yeah, so sure. I would only assume that, for somebody who is as passionate, who has tried to do multiple different things, because you did try to go into a different job. I don't know how different, but it was different than the first one, and even seeing that this is not what you want to do, you have to go back. It was almost like you were compelled to go back. And that, I think, is powerful for a lot of people. And that's a lot of inspiration that, we need to see a little bit more.
Yeah, it was a huge motivator because I was working for myself and then suddenly had to go back and work for someone else. And this person that I was working for was the biggest chauvinist, like horrible person. The guy was just an ass. And
that doesn't help.
No. But it really helped me because it made me say, you know what, this is ridiculous. Like I need to go back, redouble my efforts and make sure that I make a success out of my own situation. I was basically got to a point of being unemployable, in a very positive way. And it came out, to me, it's just one very simple thing. There's either pursuing someone else's dream or pursuing your own dream. Yeah. And not everybody can run their own business, right? So there are people who are still pursuing their dream, and the job is a means to an end. It allows them to do other things that they want to do. So running your own business is not for everybody, but for me, running my own business was pursuing my dream. Working for anyone else was pursuing their dream, and I couldn't live like that anymore.
Yeah, that's one of those things that I found out about 5 minutes after I left my job. I was like, wow, okay, I'm not meant to hold down a job. I'm not meant to be employed by somebody else because I'm always going to be less happy than I am right now.
Yep.
working way longer hours and getting paid almost nothing, I'm still happier right now than I've ever been before. So this is like where I'm supposed to be. I knew in like 5 minutes. It was just that easy.
Well, then being on both sides of it, you have to admit, and I'm sure we've all held jobs throughout our lives, when you look at your productivity level when you're in a cubicle working for a paycheck versus your productivity level when it's you, your shop, your robots, your art studio, whatever the case is, your productivity is, to me, it's a night and day difference. Frankly, I learned a lot of woodworking while in a cubicle.
Yeah.
Interesting.
No, I've done a lot of. How do you think them handbooks get made?
Well, what's interesting, you guys? There's studies that they have, basically done. I don't know how serious the studies are, but the best times to post on social media are very specifically times when people first get to work because they're going to mess around for like an hour and check Twitter and check things like that. And then late in the afternoon after lunch, because people are tired and they don't feel like working, is like one of the best times to post on Facebook. So seriously, it's really interesting that the little tricks that we need to learn as business owners have a lot to do with the laziness of people at work that are unhappy with their jobs. Yeah. So I think it's interesting that a lot of people that are entrepreneurs sort of fall into this very specific category of being like unable to find happiness in a corporate environment. And I don't want to put down anybody that does find happiness there, because I do know a lot of people that, work for big tech firms and they're super happy about it. But so, Mark, you first started off when you quit and you got into YouTube and you got into making videos. You were sort of like your own little niche market, right? Because we have similarities. Like when I first started was when Etsy first came out. So I was like a big fish in a small pond. And the same thing, I think, happened in your case, that you were one of the pioneers in your field. How have things changed for you now that so many people are out there doing it? Because I know, like for me, no one was making jewelry for atheists or humanists or, critical thinkers at the time. I was one of the very few. I think there were 3 people altogether that I knew that were making science jewelry. And now there's a ton of people out there doing it. So I know things have changed for me in terms of how I market my work. Have things changed for you in that respect as well?
Things have changed a lot around me. And I think, to this day, and I heard you guys talking last week about making weekly videos, and Bill, your struggles with going with that kind of pace. That is something I can never and will never do. And when I look at the environment as it is today, I look at a place that I would never succeed if I started today. And the only reason I can succeed is because I've got the momentum of 10 years behind me. I don't have to make a video every week to put food on my table for my family.
Yeah.
And if I don't have to do that, I'm not going to, because you know what? A video a week with my hands and the way that I work and the type of stuff that I build, a video once a week means it's not going to be a very good video, and it's not going to have very much interesting content, and I'm probably not going to be very happy because I had to rush to put it out. So I look around and I go, well, I'm glad that there are people who are motivated enough to do that because that's what they feel they need to do for their channels. But man, I could never do it. But that's a big thing that's changed. And I think if you're starting today, that might be the only way to get where you need to go, to eventually get to a point where maybe you could slow down a little bit because you're entrenched and everybody knows who you are. So yeah, I look around and go, man, I'm glad I started when I did, because I could not do this like the way people do it.
Yeah, well, same for me.
When you bring that up, I immediately think of 2 things. Number one is the Wood Whisperer Guild, which is something we haven't talked about yet. But for those of you listening at home, Mark basically offers some of his more complicated projects as classes, like in-depth multi-part classes. And you go join the guild, you can buy the project, and it will teach you step-by-step how to build that class. I am not yet a member because I am broke, but it's on the list.
I'll get you a free membership, Bill. It's okay.
Oh, you don't have to do that.
But and you bring up a good point. I say that I can't do weekly videos, but the reality is in the guild I do, and those are paying customers who are getting that. So every Friday during a build, and the build usually lasts about 2 months, every Friday we put a video out, and sometimes it's 2 videos a week. So that's actually one of the reasons why I there's no way I have time to also do that on our free site as well, because I'm so focused on making sure that the paying customers are getting what they paid for.
Right, and then the free stuff is just a bonus for the people who like and appreciate your work and will watch it, but maybe don't want to go that in depth on a project.
Yeah, and that's also why, at this point, I've over the years, going back to what you were asking, Amy, have had to come to terms with, there was a time where I was the #1 subscribed YouTuber. And again, I hesitate to even use the term YouTuber. I don't like that term. I make videos. I happen to put them on YouTube, and that's the way I look at it. But I was the number one position, and then you've got, like you said, you mentioned Matthias and Steve from Mere Mortals, and these are guys who came in and they played the YouTube game, and the YouTube game is a very aggressive video output schedule on a regular schedule, and you are dedicated to it, and I wasn't. So it did not take long before I was, taken out of that number one position and had to learn where my place was. And we're talking about niches, and this is perfect because even within the woodworking niche, I'm deeper in that niche. And when I see people who have subscriber numbers,
niche the wrong word? Do I say it wrong?
Niche is a fancy way to say it.
Tomato.
You have to have it geeked out.
I was just like, wait a minute.
I like to say niche.
Mark seems way smarter than me. I must be doing this wrong.
I like to say niche, but I think niche is a perfectly acceptable way to pronounce it.
Sorry to interrupt. I just had to.
I just don't sound that fancy when I talk.
No, I went to school for English. I'll allow it. They're both good. Continue.
Okay. The judges approve.
Yeah.
But when I look at people who have these numbers that are way higher than mine, it isn't like, oh, geez, what do I do to copy them so I can be like that too? That's not the game that I'm in. I would love for those people to keep doing what they do because they bring in the people at the top of the funnel. And where I'm at is at the bottom of the funnel. So keep bringing them in because as they go deeper into the craft and they want to learn more, eventually they will find my stuff and hopefully someday they'll end up in the guild. And that's the ultimate for me is where a customer lands if they come in through this larger funnel. So I see YouTube and our entire community of makers and woodworkers as a funnel that's assisting me all the way at the lower end of that funnel. So even if my numbers aren't where other people's are, I don't have to worry about that. That's fine. That's fine because if I changed everything I did, I might be able to compete. But I don't want to be that person. I don't. Right. That's not that's not my true self, and I can't do that. So
you know what this makes me think about it. When you think about a niche, you really have to be exceptional, because otherwise you wouldn't be able to succeed in a niche or niche. now I'm double guessing myself. But you wouldn't be able to survive in a niche market if you're not that good. Like average people probably get run over and looked over. Really?
Too.
Well, I think that's almost the point of going into a niche early is because you don't have to be great to be noticed.
Yeah.
But I think as it gets a little bit more crowded, then it starts to be a little bit more, yes, you do need to be exceptional because now even though you're deep within that niche, everybody knows about you now or there's more people there now and you do have to do something to differentiate yourself.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's the thing. I think when we're talking about being exceptional, I want to make a distinction between making exceptional content and being exceptionally skilled, because I look at the stuff that Mark makes and I am nowhere near that. Like I could not build any of those things without taking, like 5 false starts and wasting a whole bunch of lumber. But I can put a video together and I'm happy with the videos that I put together, and they're vastly different styles from the stuff that Mark is making. So we're not, first of all, I don't think the maker community on YouTube is competing with each other, really, because everybody who comes in, like Mark says, they're, everybody's going to find everybody eventually. But as long as you bring your own take to it, then you'll be fine. Like, because I'm a, as far as makers go, I'm nowhere near even like the middle of the pack. There are people far more skilled than I am. But I can show people, I can show people like you don't have to already have a whole shop full of tools. Hey, if I had all those tools, I could do that too.
Oh, I love that comment.
Yeah, you love that one, right?
That's mine.
I guess it's a little different in like regular markets. Like the product doesn't necessarily have to be as good in regular markets. You can have generic products, and those generic products usually get, because there's no brand recognition or there's nothing special about that product, it usually gets rolled over. Unless you're...
Well, I think it's a little different here, and I mean, Mark would know more about this than I do, but with something like the guild, yes, there needs to be a good product, but the product in that case is the instruction and the plans. It's not a physical product. Well, I guess the plans count, but with something like what I'm doing, I'm making a video which they don't have to purchase. They don't have to decide to get my video over someone else's video. They can watch both. They don't
so that is probably a difference, yeah.
Well, and what's interesting now is because there are so many more people getting into making things, it's like when you're talking about like the kind of content you make, Bill, when you have to think about what type of information to include in the video, how much information to leave out of the video, And again, going back to the whole science background, you don't like, for me, it hurts to leave out details. Like, I want to express every possible detail that I can in a video to explain it to people. But that's one of the reasons why I'm deeper down in that funnel, is because I do take the time to explain it. The reality is, if you want the numbers, you can't do that, because the general audience does not necessarily want the details. They want the big reveal. They want to see progress and then something at the end.
This is a terrifying commentary on real life right now, Mark.
Is it?
You realize it? When you think about it, yeah, people don't want the details. They just want the headline and they want the big reveal. I mean, that says a lot about our society right now, and that's really sort of fascinating and terrifying at the same time.
That's how clickbait is, successful as it is.
This is turning into a psychology class. It's turning into something. We're going to have some of the answers to our society at the end of this one.
Yeah. But I think this goes into where, if you're talking about, exceptional, a lot of times to be successful on YouTube as just an environment, and this is just my opinion, I don't think you need to be exceptional as a craftsperson at all. What you need to do is be exceptional in the way that you deliver that information that appeals to the largest group of people possible. And some of the most successful stuff doesn't have that much information in it, and the product they're making, is maybe not the best it could be. Yeah. But they are masters at conveying it in a way that people want to watch and they can't click away.
Yeah, entertainment.
Yep, absolutely. And that's something for me personally, I'm a little more on the side of, I'm more focused on my project, and I'll bring you along with me, but I'm making this thing, and that's the most important thing to me. And I'm also making a video, and I'll make that as good as I can make it, but that's not my primary concern.
Right.
I want to make sure that this thing I'm making is as good as it can be.
Right. Now, just from a different perspective, I'm making sure that the video is the best possible thing, because for me, that is that's the product. That's the thing that I'm putting out there, because the piece of furniture or whatever, okay, so it has to pass my wife's approval. But other than that, I mean, it's going to go in my pocket or it's going to stay in my shop. I'm not making things to sell, and I'm not...
Is your wife God? Because you just pointed up at the...
No, I pointed at the frame. It's got her picture on it. It's right there.
Okay.
See, that's interesting, Bill, and I've never really thought about it that way, but it totally makes sense. I think for people to make things on such a quick turnaround on a weekly basis, you probably can't spend too much time caring about that thing. Like, you've got to come up with the idea, make it real quick, make the video, and the video is the final product. And I do value my videos. That's the core of my business, but I cannot spend my time making things that don't matter to me.
Yeah, well, then the thing is... Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No,
yes, I did. Whatever.
Hey, it's your show, man. Cut me off.
It's not that I'm making things that don't matter to me. It's that I always want to be trying something new and something different, which is part of why I can't just stick with woodworking, because I need to explore everything that I possibly can. And that means that I'm trying something new every week, which also means I'm usually starting with a small project, because if I make a mistake, it's not a big, expensive mistake. It's a small mistake that I can afford and write off. But I totally understand what you're saying, and I think it's an interesting perspective. Like, you have to decide where you fit along that continuum. Like, are you going to make really super well-produced videos? Or are you going to make really super well-made product videos? Or
somewhere combination of two.
So would you guys...
you can do both. You can definitely do both. But I think in Bill's case, his content is the content that he produces, regardless of what it's of, I guess, is a weird, it's like a sort of a strange way to look at it, but you're producing content, that's what you're trying to do, whereas Mark is actually producing pieces of art that he's then explaining how to make.
Right.
And so it's the same, there's similar aspects to it.
Yeah.
Just like I'm constantly creating. Yeah, I don't think they do the same thing.
No, not at all. But I think it's fascinating, because when I was starting out, I was watching Mark's stuff. I was watching Wood Whisperer videos, and I watched your. I was actually going back and rewatching some of your early videos just to get ready for this episode, and I saw the one where you pretended to go to the lumber store and Nicole was playing the clerk.
Right.
And that was like episode 4 or something. But I watched that before I went to the hardwood dealer for the first time, because I was confused.
Right.
But I watched that, and then 10 years later, here we are, and there is now the maker scene and content creators, and it has all expanded so much that there is room for people like Mark who want to make this in-depth how-to, this is how to nail it content, and then there's room for people like me. I have videos where the thing didn't even turn out, and I'm just saying, okay, well, you know what, this didn't work, but that's okay, it was fun.
Yeah.
Like, here's all the fun that I had, like, messing this thing up, you know?
Nothing wrong with that?
Which end of the spectrum would you say, if you're just getting into this, which end of the spectrum do you think you should start out with? Do you think that maybe trying to do multiple videos, well, one video on a regular schedule should be the way to go? Or would you recommend maybe starting out in a niche, seeing how you like that, spending more time with it, and then going and doing something different? First as a content creator, and then also as a maker.
I think that's
just
a
if you
really
wanted to make
personal question.
It so depends on what your goals are.
Yeah.
And I think if you want to be big on YouTube, there's a formula and there's an answer for that. If you want to be big in your industry and then you want to utilize social media to get an extra little boost and a little presence because you want to increase your presence as an artist or a builder, your goal is going to be different. You don't care about a weekly schedule. You just want to make sure everyone sees that you are awesome at what you do.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very different set of goals, I think, but it depends on what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah,
So you really have to evaluate yourself first before you even get, well, maybe not before, but you know what I mean? Like, as you get into this and you decide that making something and maybe this turning your passion into a profession, you see how I throw that in there?
Nice.
That is the thing that you want to do, right? Maybe you say, I need to evaluate my goals and see which route do I need to go to make this happen the best way.
Well, you got to ask yourself, what do you really love to do?
Right.
Because whatever it is, you're going to end up hating it at least 3 days out of the week because it ends up being work. So you got to ask yourself, what do you love to do? And for me, I love the process. I love actually making things, and I don't make videos. I guess I'm the only one here that really isn't interested in making videos because I'm more interested in actually making work, doing the work, and that's what I love, and that's what I spend my time doing. And I do promote myself obviously on social media, but ask yourself, what do you love to do? Do you enjoy editing? Because if you don't enjoy editing, you're not going to enjoy putting out a video every week. There's things you got to ask yourself what you want to do, and then you got to make it into something that you can dedicate yourself to 5, 6, 7 days a week if you're going to make any money at it. So
and I think you have to also be prepared for what the video content, like even if you use that as a supplemental thing, you really have to be prepared for what that can do to your mindset. Because I've seen it a million times, people who start off with aspirations of being a builder and they want to make things, and they make a couple of videos and then they do a couple more videos, and then suddenly the game is the videos, and they really stop their progression in terms of their learning and their abilities because they're so focused on this game of acquisition of subscribers. And that becomes the mission instead of learning and getting better at what they do. And I could tell you, after doing this for 10 years, my growth curve has plateaued. And it's only because I'm constantly concerned about what am I teaching people, and should I teach this or do I do this? I'm not experimenting as much. I'm not pushing myself as much because I have this job of teaching people. Yeah. So I think it can be a trap if your goal is to be successful in your industry, and we're not talking about videos, your industry of building something or making things. And then you start the videos, you do have to be careful because it can pull you in, and suddenly you find yourself just watching your subscriber numbers every night, and you can't wait till you hit a certain milestone, and that's what matters to you instead of actually building things.
You said that and it just made me think, like, I plateaued too with learning robotics. Like, since I've redirected and started doing things, I'm not learning now. I'm focused on how do I teach what I've already learned. And that just scared me.
Well,
teaching is good for it reinforces what you already know, and you make sure you know what you know very well because you're teaching it, but it does slow the progress, your upward trajectory, and your personal learning.
That's actually why when I started this out, I decided I wasn't going to do, well, I tried a few, but I decided pretty quickly that I wasn't going to do how-to videos or educational videos because, first of all, I don't have the knowledge, and second, I want to be able to try new things every single week if I want to. If I want to mess with something I've never done before, I want to have the freedom to do that. And that might mean that, this week's project is going to look like a hot mess, and that's fine because no one's looking to me for instruction,
Yeah.
Anyway. That's very interesting. Now I have to go back and really think about my life. Like,
all right.
Do I really want to be a teacher? I thought that maybe the teacher thing was a good route to go, and now I'm thinking about it. I don't know.
Well, you do have to make a conscious effort to continue to learn.
Learn something new.
If you don't think about it, it's just not going to happen. You've got to put the time in there to actually do it.
Yeah. Yes, even last week when I got all those Udemy classes, they're all in things that I know that I just want to make sure that I know. I didn't get any classes that would teach me a new skill.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think I did. So that just messed me up.
I'm sorry,
and I
Jeff.
did it subconsciously. Well, I mean, it's good. I'll know what I know, and I'll be sure that I know it. But maybe I won't know too many new things. I'll have to go and experiment. Maybe since you mentioned Raspberry Pi, maybe I'll get into that. I've been meaning to.
Yeah, do it.
How to use that? I haven't.
Powerful little device.
Yeah.
Well, that feels like a good place to break this thing off, because otherwise I feel like we could sit around and chat all day.
Yeah. I wonder.
There's so much to talk about.
Did we talk about niche markets enough?
I think we did. I think we actually hit it really well. It wandered a little bit, but I thought it went pretty well. I don't know.
I halfway through, I was like, what were we talking about?
Do we have time to talk about Amy's sort of political?
Talk to me, baby. What do you want to know? AMA.
Yeah, the thing that we just started talking about before recording that I thought was really interesting, because it's something that I do exactly the opposite of what she does for strategic reasons, and she does her thing for strategic reasons and probably personal reasons as well. Right. And I just find it incredibly compelling to have one business that is pushing for political statements versus a business like mine where I don't touch it with a 10-foot pole. Yeah. You know, because I feel like it actually would be detrimental to my business. Right. So I think it's very interesting to hear from a maker who finds that strategy useful and profitable to say, hey, if you're a fence sitter, in your opinion of me, I'm going to knock you off. You either love me or you hate me.
Or you hate me. Yeah, and I'm okay with that. Yeah, that's actually how my business got popular. Like, I think, I don't know if we talked about this on air before we were recording, but initially what made my business a huge success and what afforded me the luxury of being able to purchase a home was that I started making jewelry for people that nobody wanted to make jewelry for. So everybody had crosses and Star of Davids and different religious symbols, but nobody was making any jewelry for the non-believers or the atheists or the free thinkers or the humanists. So I got really, really involved in that community, and I sought out symbols, and I found ways to create jewelry that represented this idea of critical thinking and free thought and freedom from religion. And that made me a small fortune, actually, and is what got me started. It also got me a lot of enemies, right? Because people are very, very angry at atheists a lot of the time for whatever reason. But I chose that path because, for one thing, it was something that was important to me. And as an artist, I felt it was important to have a message. And all along, I've been striving to find a message for my art. I think art is kind of, boring if it just sits there and does nothing political. I mean, what's the point of it really being art, in my opinion? So, I started creating art for the underdogs and the people that weren't being paid attention to that I cared about. And so that sort of thrust me into this political spotlight and pushed me out on the stage. And I ended up, giving public talks and doing all these things because I was part of the atheist community, because I was on the forefront of making jewelry for people that didn't have anything to represent their quote-unquote belief system. And so now I've kind of grown past that, and I've become a lot more intersectional, and I now have a lot more respect, actually, for people who are religious, and I have a lot of friends and family that I love who are religious. And so I've sort of broadened my scope, but at the same time, I pride myself in being a firebrand type of an artist, and I'm very political, and I'm very pro-women's rights, and I am very against this president-elect that we have coming into office, and my art reflects that, and that's my brand. That's what people expect from me. They don't expect me to make a necklace that says princess on it. They expect me to make something that is a statement that people can rally behind and that they can either use as a teaching moment, or they can use as something that will sort of encourage them to stand up and fight against injustice. So oftentimes, I get a lot of for this. All the time I have, negative comments. I am the most complained about person on this podcast by far. Everyone says I talk too much. Everything about me is terrible.
Hey, I got us 2 stars though. I got us two stars.
Yeah, I'm going to start complaining about Bill, so I'm going to even this out.
Yeah, nobody complains about Bill. They complain to Bill about me. But my client base that has, kept my business going now that Etsy is flooded with, things made in China that look very similar to things I make, it's hard to compete with that. Like, I can't just be a ceramic jewelry maker without a message, because I will have nothing. Anybody can do what I do. They may not be able to do it as lovely and as perfect and as wonderful as I have after over a decade of doing the same thing.
And you're so modest.
Yeah, I was
Well,
about
it's
to say.
true. I mean, I do a really good job. I have pride in workmanship. I
Yeah.
am a craftsperson who takes her seriously. But yeah, my market expects me to be this loud, mouthy feminist. And if I'm not, then I will lose my main customer base. So I have definitely a niche market because I am not reaching out to all of the Republicans and all of the pro-life people and all of those people. In fact, they despise me, but I've sort of accepted that, and it's how I sleep at night because I know that what I'm doing is truly something that I love and I believe in, and I think will change the world someday. Maybe just a little. You know, I talk a lot about ripples, you know, floating out. These are my ripples. I'm throwing these necklaces into a lake right now in my backyard, and I'm watching the ripples, you know, radiate outward and with other people wearing them and making a difference as well. You know, I encourage people to speak out. I encourage people to follow their dreams and to fight against authority and do stuff like that. And without this attitude, my business means nothing. Surly-ramics is not surly if I am, you know, just towing the line and being sweet and quiet. So
Right.
Yeah.
No, that's great. That's awesome to hear.
I really respect that, and I appreciate that. And if it wasn't that, if that was not so, Amy,
yeah.
I wouldn't like you. You wouldn't be one of my closest friends.
Aw.
Because I say that because the commitment that you have to speaking out, and the commitment that you have to not caring about being liked. See, this is the problem that I have, right? And this is why we're in the situation that we're in right now as a society. Everybody wants to be liked. Everybody wants to be liked, and so they sacrifice their own, their self, their integrity.
Yeah.
That's integrity,
Good word.
right? I don't know why in my mind I'm slipping, but they sacrifice that, and they do things that will put them in a position where they're not being authentic. And forget about being authentic, they're putting themselves in a position to be taken advantage of and to just go with the tide. And for me, that was one of the main reasons why I told my wife this. I got an insurance policy. If at some point somebody is not trying to kill me before I die, right, that means that I do not stand for my beliefs the way that I need to. And we talked about it on this podcast. No, I'm serious. And it's because, and this obviously has nothing to do with making or woodworking, but if you look at history of America throughout since forever, right? Black people have been put in a position where their leaders have been executed, right? And you can go back, the big ones that you know about, the small ones that you don't know about. Some of them weren't executed, they were chased out of the country, right? And it was because they spoke truth to power, right? And they did it consistently, and they weren't concerned about how other people were feeling. And, you know, because I don't talk about it on this podcast, if you were to go on my Facebook page, you'd see it like crazy. And so that is one of the reasons why, Amy, I am drawn to you and I connect with you. And the reason why I appreciate you being on this podcast, right? And I appreciate taking that and making it something, because if we don't share this information, if we don't at least say things like this, then, you know, people are just going to continue living in their silos, never hearing something different than the things that they were going to hear from their friends who already think like them.
Okay, so see, you are my target market, because somebody like that respects me and cares about the fact that I speak out is going to want to buy my jewelry or support my Patreon, and that's how I make a living. And so that's really great. However, I'm not saying that I would recommend my attitude to somebody that is just starting out trying to run a business.
Not. You can't.
Because, yeah, you're going to, you know, have a much better chance if you are doing something that Marc does where you're reaching a broader audience. You're going to have a much better chance of getting a business started that way, because you sort of have to have already achieved a level of success before you can be like me with a,
F the world.
You know, with an F the world kind of attitude.
But I do think that there are people who can be sustained by being F whatever they're trying to say F. If it is that they're trying to say F. Maybe some people aren't trying to say F, but I think you could be sustained if you are being authentic. Maybe you're not going to be a billionaire, but I do believe that you can be sustained and you can make an honest living and you can be connected to the people that you are communicating to.
It depends, but in some
It's
situations, yes. Yeah, it's very tricky.
It could be very tricky. I mean, I've got very specific viewpoints on the world when it comes to religion and politics, and I never share them with people. And now in private company, yeah, absolutely. But I have this sort of battle within myself because I do feel like when you have an audience, there is something of a, I don't know if it's moral or ethical responsibility to try to, push a viewpoint that you think is good for the world. So if I can influence these people to do this, but it's like, that's not what people come to me for. The smart businessman in me says, people come here to forget all of that crap. They want to be in their shops to have fun and do things. So if you are, if I'm on one side of the spectrum and you're on the other, you can still come to me, and this is a safe place for us to hang out and learn stuff together. So I do have this, two sides of my brain because I, was very in college, mostly very outspoken about my beliefs and wanting to make sure the world knew what I believed. And then once I started my business, I went 180 degrees the other way. And I don't want to tell you what my views are because I don't want to know what yours are, because let's just exchange money. Give me your credit card number and we'll have a transaction. Yeah. And I don't care if you're a Republican or Democrat, all your money is still worth the same amount.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, so I think it's
weird.
That's absolutely true. I was talking more about if that was your thing. Not everybody I'm saying has to do that. But I mean, as it is something, if doing something authentic means going against, if you have to, so for you, Mark, you're a woodworker, right? So it doesn't necessarily require you to share those views. Right. Versus Amy, if you were making things that were religious, right, whereas internally that doesn't mesh with you, then you wouldn't be able to function. Right. And you could probably be.
I could function. I mean, I make crosses for people. I am not anti-religion. I'm not one of those.
No, I don't mean it like that. I mean, if that was if the same way, if you felt one way, right, if you were making content if you were as committed to the opposite content as you are to your current content without believing that.
Yeah. You're talking about selling out.
Yeah.
That is the actual definition of selling out. It does not mean accepting money for your work. It means doing something that you don't believe in and pretending that you believe in it in order to make money.
Exactly.
You can leave your beliefs off to the side if that is what is necessary for business, but actually promoting a viewpoint that you disagree with in order to make a buck, that is selling out.
Going against what you believe in, not being authentic. Like making crosses, you could do that.
I do. I don't think that anyone should not have art. I don't care what your religion is, if you like my art, I will make something for you. But I'm still going to be in my own private spaces and, on my websites, I'm very political.
Yeah.
That's just, that's part of surly-ramics. That's my niche market. People, I am a safe space too, Mark. I'm a safe space for feminists. I'm a safe space for the non-religious and the free thinkers. They come to me and talk to me privately, because they're afraid to speak publicly, but they know that I'm loud. And so for them, I'm helping them in a small way.
So Amy, in a hypothetical situation, let's imagine a religious organization knows that you make great ceramic jewelry and they want this for their congregation, and they want you to make, it's a great commission for you financially, and they want you to make a bunch of either psalms like on these things or basically pro-religious statements on your jewelry. And would you take a commission like that, or is that something that you...
It depends on the church, There's a lot of good churches out there that are actually really, open-minded and treat gay people with respect and, are good people. And there's the Universal Unitarian churches that I absolutely love, and I make their logo for them. So yeah, sure, I would. As long as it's not somebody that's going to censor the other work that I do. I am not at all. I'm not angry. Other people are angry at me because I'm very political.
I'm extremely angry.
Well, I phase in and out, but I don't think that that's selling out in my perspective, because I don't hate religious people. I happen to be an atheist, and I happen to be a feminist, and I happen to believe that a lot of things should change, but I don't want to take anybody's religion away from them. I don't want to take anybody's hope away from them. So, sure, I wouldn't say, I have respect for all kinds of people. And, as long as the psalm or whatever the saying isn't like, lynch your neighbor or something. If it's like love your neighbor, sure. I want people to be happy. just want to have the freedom to express what I believe as well.
Yeah,
That's cool.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. It's so powerful. I think that art is specifically one of the things that keeps this world sane, because it allows people to express themselves.
Yeah.
And I think that gives, just by sharing your art, Amy, I think that's incredible. And there's a lot of things that we talk about on this podcast, and I always feel the most connected to the art, right? We talk about business a lot. We talk about the different things, robotics. We barely talk about robotics. We talk a little bit about woodworking with it. Hey, listen, like I said, I'm not good with social media. I'm not good with documentation. I'm anti-social media. But, when we talk about the art and how that connects people and the different ways that we inspire people, I love that. That's probably one of the best parts about doing this podcast. I do like talking about business too, though.
Oh. Well, speaking of sharing art, we got to do some recommendations.
Oh,
right.
Yeah. Let's get to it.
Who's going first?
Oh, I'll go first.
You want to go first? All right.
Yeah. So I saw the movie Hidden Figures.
Ooh, I want to see that so bad.
It is my favorite movie. I left there, and I'm sure it's probably not my favorite movie, but I want to say that because I can't think of what movie I enjoy more. But it was an incredible movie. And I've seen a lot of movies this year. I've seen a lot of movies in the last 2 years that I thought were really good, and this one just jumped over all of them. Hidden Figures. If you have not seen this movie, I encourage you to go out and see this movie. It is an excellent story of 3 African-American scientists, mathematicians, engineers. They work for NASA, and it just showed a different side of it. It showed a different story other than your average slave story that they bring out all the time around this time when it's award season, because they know those are the ones that are going to win those easy awards. But it was an excellent story. So if you get a chance, make sure you go and check that movie out.
Yeah. All right, y'all. So Trump is going to be president, apparently, if he can get away with it.
Rumor.
The day after that awful thing happens, there's going to be a march, a women's march, but everyone's welcome to attend. And it is going to start in Washington at the intersection of Independence Avenue and 3rd Street near the U.S. Capitol at 10 a.m. And there's also going to be marches all across the country. There's going to be one in L.A. I will be there. I'm having a sign-making party at my art studio on Saturday. And that brings me to my recommendation, which is this really cool contest that they had where they got women from all over to make these really bitchin' signs that you can download and print for free. So we're going to link to it. And even if you're not going to go to the march, these are amazing protest poster art pieces that you could print at home and frame. They're super cool. So that's my recommendation. I really wish you can make it to the march if you feel that is something that you care about. And if not, at least go check out this poster art because it's super cool and it's free. And they paid the artist too, which is really nice. A lot of times there's contests where they just try to get people to make art for free, and that really bothers me. But the artists were compensated and their art is amazing. And check that out. And hopefully I will see you the day after inauguration in the streets.
Oh, if it isn't blown up yet.
If they haven't come and jacked me away. If Putin hasn't gotten me.
Putin. Pootie, did you guys see SNL with Pootie?
Oh, Pootie. Yeah.
That was so funny.
That was brilliant.
Mark, how about you?
All right, who's next?
I'll give a recommendation to something that just recently we went to visit the Craftsy offices in Denver. If you're not familiar with Craftsy, they are an online education sort of depot. I mean, they've got thousands and thousands of tutorials on everything from quilt making to sewing to woodworking to cooking and cake decorating, all kinds of stuff. So super high quality, but we went there to talk about potential licensing and opportunities for me to be an instructor. But we got to tour the offices, and it was just really cool seeing an environment that essentially is what I do on a micro scale. If you blew it up into a big business that was funded by venture capitalists, you would have that, like a 200-person team dedicated to doing the same thing that I do, just on a much more grand scale. And they do have great woodworking tutorials and lots of good stuff there. It's unfortunately it's not free, but a lot of times you want the really good detailed information, you do have to pay for it.
Yeah, you gotta pay for it.
Yeah, so that's been on my mind lately, and they have a good product there, so go check them out.
Really quickly, I have one last thing I need to ask you, Mark.
Yeah?
If I join the guild, am I provided with an arch nemesis?
Yes. We
Okay.
assigned them immediately on your way in.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to join.
Yes, we're a group of super.
So my recommendation for this week is that you go check out the Wood Whisperer and the Wood Whisperer Guild.
He always does this.
I always do this. I bring the
always
guest
does
on
this.
for a reason, okay? Like when I was getting started, I didn't know anything about woodworking, and I watched Mark's videos, and suddenly I knew a little bit more about woodworking. And then I thought I knew more than I did, and I went and made a bunch of mistakes, but that's part of the process. But Mark has been making great content longer than just about anybody else, so I recommend that you go watch some of it. If you've never seen it before, it is absolutely worth your time. And as far as the guild, I will become a member at some point, especially because now Matt Cremona is also doing classes over there. So, at this point, I've run out of excuses. I really have to go check it out.
I'll set you up, and don't worry about it.
Aw,
Thank you.
Big Bill.
so
This is
sweet.
what happens when you have friends in high places.
Yeah.
Yeah. Something like that.
All right. Well, that's about it for this week. But before we go, where can everybody find you?
All right,
Oh,
if you're looking for me, anybody.
Everybody.
Guest of honor. Guest
Okay.
of honor.
Oh, you want me to go first? Okay.
Yeah.
TheWoodWhisperer.com. Pretty much everything you need is there. It's a launching point for our forum, for Patreon campaigns, everything that we do. The guild, it's all there.
Cool.
All right, if you're looking for me, you can find me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at more4, the F being the number 4. Thank you for everybody who's followed me, reached out to me. I've had a lot of people reach out to me, sending me emails. We got a lot of things happening on the back end.
Yeah.
A lot of projects.
Well, you've been getting all the love mail. Amy's been getting all the hate mail.
Oh,
And I've just been getting nothing. So
Oh, but
Amy,
they
how
send
about you?
They send you my hate mail.
I
Isn't
get
that
complaints
so
for other people, yes.
very true.
Aw, I love hate mail. Keep sending it in. You can find me at Surly Amy on all social media, and you can go to surly-ramics.com. It's a portal to everything that I make.
You can find me on your favorite social media platform at One Car Workshop or at onecarworkshop.com. So that's it for this week. If you are listening to the show on iTunes, please take a moment to leave us a rating and tell us what you think. Now, I know a lot of you are slacking on this because 2,000 people listen to this show every week, and we've got like 20 reviews, so the other 1,980 of you have some work to do. You can also find us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Makers Hustle. If you want to ask a question, give feedback, suggest a show topic, suggest another guest host like Mark, you can contact us through social media or send an email to info@makershustlepodcast.com. Once again, thank you so much for listening. We really do love having you here. And while this show might be over,
The
The
hustle
hustle
never stops.
See you next week, everybody.
Thanks,
I'm
Mark.
looking,
Thanks,
I'm
guys.
looking in the camera and I'm realizing I need to grow my beard out. Mark, you have a great beard.
Mark, you have a fantastic mountain man beard. Like, as soon as you make it up to
great.
Denver, it just...
I know. Yeah, I never grew a beard until I got here. And you know what? I'm afraid of like dust getting in through the respirator because of the
Oh,
beard.
yeah.
So I might have to shave it just because it doesn't work as well. So
You know, it's funny. My wife is a biochemist by training and worked in a lab for a long time. So every time I'm working with any kind of finish that stinks, she's like, "You're gonna shave today, right?
right. Yeah, you got to get
Because
that
your respirator's not gonna fit right if you still have that beard on."
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to shave tonight, too, you guys.
Good news.
Wait. I hope you shave
Finally.
off.